In his final lectures, Neville Goddard stopped teaching manifestation, not because it stopped working, but because it worked too well. And the students who mastered it completely came back with the same question. A question Neville couldn't answer without destroying everything he had built. The question was simple. Now what? I've manifested everything, and I still feel empty. What do I do with that? By the end of this video, you'll understand why Neville spent his last 2 years teaching something that sounds nothing like manifestation. Something that has nothing to do with getting what you want, and everything to do with dissolving who you think you are. And you'll have to decide, do you want to keep manifesting? Or do you want to know what comes after? Because you can't have both. This is Hidden Mind Master. Between 1948 and 1968, Neville Goddard gave the same lecture over and over, with slight variations. Different stories, different examples, but the core message never changed. Imagination creates reality. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persist in that assumption. The outer world will conform. For 20 years, this is what he taught, and it worked. Students manifested jobs, money, relationships, health, everything they wanted, everything he promised. But then something shifted. In 1969, students who had been attending his lectures for years started noticing something strange. Neville wasn't talking about manifestation anymore. He was talking about Christ, about resurrection, about awakening. And when they asked him, "How does this help me manifest?" he would pause, look at them with this expression that was almost sad, and say, "It doesn't. This isn't about manifestation. This is about what happens after manifestation stops mattering." Most students left, confused, frustrated. They had come for techniques, for methods, for ways to get what they wanted. And Neville was telling them getting doesn't matter. But a few stayed. The ones who had manifested so much, so consistently, that they knew exactly what Neville meant. They had gotten everything, and it changed nothing. They were still the same person, in a better situation, but fundamentally unchanged, still seeking, still wanting, still feeling like something was missing. And Neville's new teaching wasn't about filling that missing piece. It was about dissolving the one who feels it's missing. And I'm going to show you exactly how he did this. But first, you need to understand what he saw. What made him stop teaching what had worked for decades? What made him pivot to something most people couldn't understand and didn't want to hear? Here's what Neville noticed. The students who succeeded at manifestation fell into 3 categories. The first category kept manifesting. Got one thing, wanted another. Got that, wanted more. An endless cycle of desire and fulfillment and new desire. Never satisfied, never complete. Always chasing the next thing. The second category manifested what they wanted and stopped. Not because they were satisfied, but because they were exhausted. They had proven to themselves that imagination works, that they could get anything, and the proof was enough. They didn't need to keep doing it. They just needed to know they could. The third category was different, smaller. These were the students who manifested everything on their list. and then came back to Neville and said, "I did it. Everything you said. It all worked, and I'm still empty. What did I do wrong?" And Neville would tell them, "You did nothing wrong. You succeeded completely. And now you're ready for what I haven't been teaching." Hold this thought, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. What Neville hadn't been teaching was this: manifestation is not the point. Manifestation is the training ground, the proof, the demonstration that consciousness creates reality. But once you've proven it, once you've manifested enough to know it works, continuing to manifest is just rearranging furniture. You're changing circumstances, but you're not changing what you are. And what you are is the only thing that matters. But most people don't want to hear this. Most people want manifestation to be the point, want getting things to be the goal, want outcomes to define success. And Neville had spent 20 years feeding that want, teaching techniques, promising results, helping people get what they desired. But by 1969, he was done. Done pretending that getting things completes you. Done teaching methods that empower the false self. Done avoiding the truth he had known all along. You are not a person trying to manifest. You are consciousness temporarily identifying as a person. And that identification is what creates the sense of lack, the sense of needing, the sense that something is missing. And no amount of manifestation will fill that, because the lack is not real. It's constructed by the identification itself. Let me show you the shift in his language. In a 1950 lecture, Neville says, "Assume you have what you desire. Feel it real, persist, and it will manifest in your world. Simple, direct, actionable." But in a 1970 lecture, he says something completely different. He says, "You are not assuming something you lack. You are remembering what you forgot. You forgot you are God. You forgot you are consciousness. You forgot you are the operant power. And in forgetting, you created the illusion of lack, of separation, of being a person who needs things. And manifestation is not about getting those things. It's about remembering you never lacked them, because you are the source. Do you see the difference? The first version teaches you to get. The second version teaches you to remember. And remembering is not the same as getting. Getting implies you're acquiring something external. Remembering implies you're recognizing what you already are. And that recognition changes everything. Now here's what Neville stopped saying in public, but implied constantly in his final lectures. He stopped saying manifest your desires. He started saying dissolve the desirer, because the desirer, the one who wants, the one who feels lack, that's the false self, the constructed identity, the one who believes they're separate from what they want. And as long as that identity remains, desire will remain. Lack will remain. The sense that something is missing will remain. No matter how much you manifest, no matter how much you get, no matter how many desires you fulfill, the desirer will create new desires, new lacks, new gaps to fill. Because that's what the desirer does. That's its function, to want, to lack, to seek. And if you keep feeding it through manifestation, you're strengthening it, making it more real. more solid, more permanent. And Neville, in his final years, was trying to show people how to starve it, how to dissolve it, how to stop being the one who wants and start being the one who is. This is a documentary-style reconstruction based on patterns in Neville's later lectures, accounts from students who studied with him during this period, and the philosophical logic of his final teachings. We're not claiming hidden transcripts or secret knowledge. We're examining what's visible when you look closely at how his message evolved. And what becomes clear is this: Neville didn't stop teaching manifestation because it failed. He stopped because it succeeded. It proved the point he needed it to prove: that consciousness creates reality, that imagination is God, that you are the operant power. And once that point was proven, manifestation became irrelevant, because the point was never to get things. The point was to recognize what you are. And what you are doesn't need things, doesn't lack things, doesn't require manifestation to be complete. What you are is already complete, already whole, already everything. And the only reason you don't feel that is because you're identified as something else, as the person, as the body, as the story. And that identification creates the illusion of incompleteness. And manifestation, when used correctly, dissolves that identification. Not by getting you what you want, but by showing you that you can get anything. And if you can get anything, then nothing you get defines you. Nothing you manifest completes you. You are complete already. And the getting was just proof. Here's what happened to students who understood this. They stopped manifesting, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't need to. They had transcended desire, not by fulfilling desires, but by recognizing the one who desires is not real, is not them, is just a temporary identification they can release. And when they released it, desire fell away, not through suppression, not through denial, through dissolution. The desire dissolved, and what remained was awareness, pure, formless, without need, without lack, without the sense that anything is missing. And this awareness, according to Neville's final teaching, is what you actually are, not the person who wants things, but the consciousness observing the person. And consciousness doesn't want, doesn't need, doesn't manifest. It simply is. And being is complete, always, already, without exception. But here's the problem. Most people don't want this, don't want to dissolve the desirer, don't want to transcend wanting, because wanting gives life direction, purpose, meaning. Without desire, what do you do? Where do you go? What's the point? And Neville knew this, knew that telling people to stop wanting was not helpful, not practical, not livable for most. So he didn't tell them to stop. He just stopped teaching them how to get, stopped reinforcing the belief that getting matters, stopped feeding the identification with the desirer, and started pointing towards something else, something most people couldn't hear, wouldn't accept, didn't want. He started pointing toward what you are when you're not trying to get anything, when you're not assuming anything, when you're not manifesting anything, when you're just being. And being, for most people, feels like nothing, feels like emptiness. Feels like death because they've spent their entire lives identified as the doer, the wanter, the manifester. And without that identification, they don't know who they are. Now here's where this gets practical, because I'm not telling you to stop manifesting. I'm showing you why Neville stopped teaching it. There's a difference. Neville stopped teaching it because he had moved past it, had transcended the need for it, had recognized where he was beyond the manifester. But that doesn't mean you're there. Doesn't mean you should stop. It means you should understand manifestation is a tool, a proof, a demonstration, not the destination. And if you're using it to get things, use it. Master it. Let it transform your circumstances. But if you're using it to try to complete yourself, to fill emptiness, to fix what you think is broken, it won't work. Not because the technique is flawed, but because you're not broken. You don't need fixing. You don't need completing. You just need to stop identifying as the one who does. And that stopping is not a technique. It's a recognition, a seeing, a direct experience of what you are beneath the identification. And that experience can't be taught, can only be pointed toward. Here's what Neville was pointing toward in his final lectures. He would say, "You are not in the world. The world is in you. You are not a body. The body is an appearance in consciousness. You are not a person with a past. The past is a construction you're maintaining through memory. And all of it, the world, the body, the person, the past, all of it is imagination, yours. And you can imagine it differently, not to get something, but to recognize you're the one imagining. And the one imagining is not bound by what's being imagined, is not limited by the appearance, is not defined by the construction. The one imagining is free, formless, infinite, and that one is you. Not the you that wants things, the you that is everything. And recognizing that you is what Neville called awakening. Not awakening to get more, but awakening to recognize you never needed more. Because you are the source of more. You are the substance from which all things are made. And substance doesn't lack anything, doesn't need anything, just is. Most people can't hear this, and Neville knew it. Knew that saying you are God sounds either insane or arrogant or meaningless. Knew that telling people to stop wanting sounds like spiritual bypassing. Knew that pointing beyond manifestation sounds like he's saying manifestation doesn't work. But he wasn't saying it doesn't work. He was saying it works so well that it proves itself obsolete. Because once you've manifested enough, once you've proven you can get anything, the getting stops mattering. And what matters is what you are. And what you are is not something you manifest into being. It's something you recognize. And recognition is not a process, not a technique, not something you do. It's something you see. And you either see it or you don't. And if you don't, manifestation is the tool that prepares you. That softens the identification. That weakens the belief that you're separate from what you desire. And eventually, if you manifest enough, you prove to yourself that you're not separate, that you are the source. And the source doesn't need to manifest, because the source is everything already. Here's what happens to people who reach this recognition prematurely, before they've manifested enough, before they've proven it to themselves, before they've exhausted desire through fulfillment. They hear you are God and think it means they can do anything. They try to manifest from that understanding, but it doesn't work the same way, because they're trying to use God consciousness to get things. And God consciousness doesn't get things. It is things. And trying to use being to get creates confusion, creates frustration, creates the sense that something's wrong, that they're doing it wrong, that they don't understand. And they're right. They don't understand. Because understanding requires experience, requires having manifested enough to know that manifesting is not the point. And if you haven't manifested enough, if you're still seeking, still wanting, still trying to get, then you're not ready for what comes after. And that's fine. That's where you should be, using the tools, applying the techniques, manifesting your desires, and proving to yourself that you can. Because that proof is what dissolves the separation. That proof is what weakens the false self. That proof is what prepares you for the recognition that you are not the manifester. You are what's being manifested through. And what's being manifested through is consciousness itself. So why did Neville stop teaching manifestation? Because he saw that the students who needed it would find it, would use it, would master it. And the students who had transcended it were ready for something else. Something he couldn't teach directly, could only point toward, could only embody, could only invite them to recognize in themselves. And that something is not a technique, not a method, not a teaching. It's a state, a recognition, a seeing of what you are when you stop trying to be anything, when you stop trying to get anything, when you stop trying to manifest anything, when you just are. And being, for Neville, was the final teaching. Not being something, just being. And being is not manifestation. It's the end of needing to manifest. Because what you are has nothing to manifest, has nothing to get, has nothing to become. It already is. Everything. Always. Completely. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. Have you manifested enough to know that manifestation is not the answer? Have you gotten enough to recognize that getting doesn't complete you? Have you fulfilled enough desires to see that fulfillment is temporary? That the satisfaction fades? That the wanting returns? If the answer is no, keep manifesting. Use the techniques. Master the law. Get what you want. Prove to yourself that it works. Because that proof is essential. That proof is what breaks the identification. But if the answer is yes, if you've manifested enough to know it's not the point, then you're where Neville was in 1969, at the threshold, where manifestation stops being the goal, and recognition becomes the path. Not recognition of how to manifest better, but recognition of what you are beneath the manifester. And what you are doesn't need to manifest, because what you are is the source. And the source lacks nothing, needs nothing, becomes nothing, just is. And isness is complete. And completion is what you've been seeking all along. Not through getting, but through being. And being is not something you achieve. It's something you recognize. When you stop trying to be anything else. This is why Neville eventually stopped teaching manifestation. Not because it's wrong, but because it's incomplete. It gets you halfway, proves consciousness creates reality, shows you're the operant power, but it doesn't show you what you are. It shows you what you can do. And what you can do is impressive, powerful, transformative. But what you are is beyond doing, beyond power, beyond transformation. What you are is being itself. And being doesn't do anything, just is. And isness, when recognized, ends seeking, ends wanting, ends the need to manifest, not through suppression, through completion, through the recognition that you are already what you were seeking. And seeking stops, not because you gave up, but because you arrived, not at a destination, but at the recognition that there was never anywhere to go. You were always here, always this, always complete. And the manifestation was just a journey that proved you never needed to journey. Because you are the destination. You are the source. You are what you were seeking. And you always were. Have you manifested enough to know it's not the answer?